And we continue at 1:06 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Wags at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, last night as I was getting into bed, I noticed an 18-minute movie on the YouTube page of Governor Gavin Newsom, the official state account, not his political account. And it's an 18-minute movie full of Gavin Newsom fist-bumping people and talking about how great California is, called The California Way. And here's what he has to say about being tough on crime.
We're restoring peace of mind. Californians want to feel safe in their homes, on their streets, and in their communities. That's why we've been hard at work bolstering local law enforcement to investigate and solve crimes quicker and better, prosecuting organized theft rings, and getting guns and drugs off the streets.
Does that sound like California to you?
This sounds like something that was produced by the Church of Scientology.
It's real weird, and he narrates the whole thing, and there are shots of like him walking through San Quentin and all the prisoners shouting at him, "You're doing a great job, Governor!"
Well, I'm sure from their point of view he is.
It's the strangest thing. I don't know what the point of this is. I don't know what's going on, but apparently I'm the only one that's seen it.
Well, he's running for president. And one of the things that you have to do when you're running for president is you have to do the national shows, check. You have to write a book. He's done that in the past. I don't know if he has a current one that's out. And you have to put together movies like this, propaganda films that talk about how great you are and how wonderful things are in your state.
It goes on for 18 minutes.
What, is he going to submit it for an Oscar for Best Short?
He might.
800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It's a pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is a Republican political strategist who you can find online at tpstrat.com and follow on Twitter at @ThomasGuide. John Thomas, welcome.
Hey, John. Good to be with you.
What do you make of the Gavin Newsom video that he's putting out that's 18 minutes of him fist bumping with people and them telling him what a great job he's doing?
Well, besides the vanity component, it's really a case of, he probably fell in love with the footage and couldn't bear to leave any of it on the cutting room floor. And as he's beginning, it's so obvious, John, not just in California, but elsewhere where he's going. He's positioning for Biden to have a stroke and drop out, or certainly to be the heir apparent to Biden. That's what everything is about. And he's looking to use taxpayer dollars to produce a film because it's cheaper for him to do it that way than use his own money.
Why does Biden not look at him as a threat? Because at this point, I think you don't have to be someone with a background in political science to recognize what Gavin Newsom's doing. He's doing the national shows. He's producing the propaganda movies that make him look like a superhero. He is trying to put out a constitutional amendment that's getting him a nationwide database of potential donors if he were to run. Mm-hmm. He certainly looks like a candidate. He's acting like a candidate, yet Biden seems to be too dumb to realize it.
Well, I mean, I think it's a big mistake, and I also think it's a similar mistake he's making with RFK Jr. Is the odds are that Biden will be the nominee. But if Biden makes a misstep or has a health issue that takes him off the trail for a little bit, you've got these candidates, particularly Gavin Newsom, waiting in the wings and ready. Everything is turbocharged, ready to go. And furthermore, John, Gavin Newsom is feeding the Democratic base what they want, which is they want a fighter, somebody who's willing to, go out there and take it to the evil racists like Sean Hannity on Fox News, and willing to go to red states like Idaho and pick fights with Florida and not back down. And I think Newsom was in Texas, in Austin the other day. This is what very passionate Democratic primary voters want out of their Democratic nominee. And Gavin's, chumming the water saying, I'm here, hoping that Biden may be forced to bow out. And I wouldn't be surprised if it happened.
It happened a long time ago, so this may surprise people to hear. But when Gray Davis was first elected governor in 1998, the state was still a purple state. In fact, prior to him, we had 4 consecutive terms of Republican governors here in the state of California. And he blew Dan Lundgren out. And after he won in a blowout, a lot of people were talking about Gray Davis as a potential presidential candidate. The people who weren't talking about Gray Davis as a potential candidate were the people in California who recognized his faults that people outside the state didn't see. It's interesting to me that among California politicos, people like Ro Khanna, the congressman from San Jose, when asked if the California model is the model for the nation, he said absolutely not, that we need to go in a different direction, that the country wouldn't buy that. Do you see a similar dynamic taking place where maybe some of the most hesitant people to run with Gavin Newsom as the Democratic nominee are Democrats in California and not out of California?
Yes, in fact, you're right. This is a very common syndrome that California politicians have. You may recall, John, as well, this happened with Antonio Villaraigosa in the same manner. He was being floated as presidential material, and from the East Coast, he looked pretty good. He checked a lot of boxes, but the closer you looked, I mean, L.A. was in absolute shambles. And I think it's even magnified with Gavin Newsom because he doesn't even have the identity card to play here. The issue is Gavin Newsom is at his core a San Francisco liberal politician. And savvy politicians in California, certainly at the federal level, get that there ain't no way that that's going to sell in Michigan or Wisconsin or Florida or any of these battleground territories that actually matter. Where it sells is to the liberal elite East Coast media. That sells, but not to the rank and file.
Let's shift gears here and talk about the California State Assembly Public Safety Committee, because that is a committee that has done everything they possibly can to run interference for heavy-duty criminals. They have killed any number of bills authored by both Republicans and Democrats that would increase the penalties for dealing fentanyl, which is killing so many Californians every single day. Most recently, they voted down a bill that was authored by Bakersfield Senator Shannon Grove that would increase the penalties for human trafficking, for child human trafficking for the purposes of the sex trade. The Democrats wouldn't vote no, they just voted present. So you had 2 Republicans vote yes, and all the Democrats voting present, and the legislation failed. Why is it that they are voting down all of these bills that I assume are very popular, certainly are needed, but they seem to believe that there won't be any blowback or that their constituents believe in what they're doing, and they're very arrogant about it. They're hiding after they don't vote for these bills. They're not meeting with reporters. They're not meeting with constituents, and they seem to feel as if there won't be any consequences for this.
Well, there will be consequences in future elections. This is something that's tailor-made for Republicans or centrist Democrats to run on. So this is a blind spot that these politicians have. But I think, John, it's primarily ideologically driven in the sense that many Democrats in the state of California that are elected believe in this broader, it's almost like a George Soros, George Gascon vision of decriminalizing crime broadly across the board. And then on top of that, their general worldview is that any kind of strengthening or putting more teeth into law enforcement is fundamentally racist, as it will target non-whites disproportionately. And so when they see both their objective being hindered of decriminalizing crime and that the idea that any tougher enforcement is in fact racist, they're going to run as far away from adding any enhancements as possible. And I think we're going to find out, John, but I think the first real example that we're going to see of voters pushing back is going to be in liberal Los Angeles County when George Gascon gets trounced for his reelection effort coming up this cycle.
Well, it'll also be interesting to see what happens in the next gubernatorial election, because you're going to have the Lieutenant Governor, Eleni Kounalakis, who is a billionaire, likely running against Rob Bonta, the Attorney General, who is essentially one of these Soros prosecutors. If she sees these bills and she sees these ridiculous positions as a liability, I would imagine that she's going to hammer him on it in her campaign ads, and she'll certainly have the ability to get the word out. But if she thinks that California is so far to the left now where those are popular positions, I would imagine she'd just leave it alone.
Yeah, that's totally right. I always like to say, do not believe what a campaign spokesperson ever says. Believe what campaigns put into where they put their dollars. That really tells you what they believe the voters want. And so you're right. If Eleni starts attacking Bonta on this issue of public safety, you know that polling is telling her that she believes her base thinks that Democrats are too soft on crime. If she remains silent on it, then you know that she believes in her core that this leftward shift is something that that the voters want. Because I know we don't know much about Eleni. I really couldn't tell you what she stands for. I think the only thing she really stands for is getting elected. So she's going to have a greater tendency to move less ideologically and more with the wins that her pollster is telling her.
We're speaking with John Thomas, Republican political strategist, who you can find online at tpstrat.com. John, Adam Schiff, the congressman from Burbank, current candidate for the U.S. Senate, raised a boatload of money in the last reporting cycle in his bid to become the next U.S. senator from the state of California. Certainly, Republicans censoring him on the House floor did wonders for his ability to raise money. I would imagine that a lot of that money is coming from small dollar donors who were getting all ginned up with the coverage on CNN and MSNBC and decided they would take it out on Republicans by writing a check to Adam Schiff. Is this top two primary going to come back and haunt the Democrats in terms of just burning money that could be used other places? And I say that because Katie Porter is also a fundraising powerhouse. She can also match Adam Schiff with the ability to generate liberal people to write checks to her campaign. But this seat is going to a Democrat either way. Barbara Lee can't raise money at the same rate as the other two, but a Democrat will likely be the next U.S. senator from California. But they're raising money as if this is a contested seat that could go to either party, when really it's just a battle over personalities. All three Democrats running for this seat all have very similar voting records and similar political ideologies. Do you think at a certain point the powers that be are going to cut off the money spigot into this race, or are they just going to continue to raise record amounts of money because they want to and they have the ability to?
I think you're not going to be able to stop the candidates from sending out the email fundraising pleas. I mean, generally speaking, John, small donors give because they're ideological and they're passionate about giving, whether it's an issue or a candidate in that moment. And I don't see anyone being able to stop Schiff or Porter from making their money machine go. Where I think you will see is that D.C. interests like the Democratic National Senate Committee, the Democratic National Committee, some of these interest groups are going to say to Porter and Schiff, we're not going to invest in your race because you're taking up a lot of our dollars. This is a safe seat. Where I think this could be a problem, we'll see, John, is the real issue is the big money needs to go to hold the Senate for the Democrats in some of these battleground races, which the California is not, as well as to hold the presidency. And when you look particularly at the presidency, there is such an enthusiasm gap for Joe Biden right now. That's what you have to be concerned about if you're the Democrats. And it looks like their only plan for that right now is to hope that Donald Trump is the nominee and that they can get these donors to stretch their pocketbooks once again just a little bit further to give to Joe Biden, not because they like Joe Biden, but because they hate Donald Trump.
John Thomas, Republican political strategist. You can find him online at tpstrat.com. Want to email the show? You can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And we just got an email from Sue in Hesperia. She said, "Hi, John and Randy. It's Woo Wednesday," which is true, "but it's also my birthday today. Would you be able to give me a shout out on the air? I'm a faithful listener and friend of Mike Netter. Thanks, Sue from Hesperia." Sue, we hope you have a very happy birthday. And in honor of your birthday, we're going to have the President of the United States, Joe Biden, sing you happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Alan. Happy birthday to you.
And Randy, if at 3 o'clock you want to keep listening to us, that is not hard to do.
I don't wouldn't advise it, but if you'd like to do that, sure. KBC.com, click on podcasts, go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all of the episodes, listen to it over and over and over again. You want to hear us do a segment 12 times in a row? You can do that. You're in control. You want us to do half speed? You can do that. You want us to talk at double speed like we're all on cocaine? You can do that too. The world is your oyster, so enjoy yourself.
In the old days, if you wanted to hear the same bit over and over and over and over and over again, you just had to listen to the live stream.
I thought you were going to take a shot at somebody, and instead you took a shot at our technical problems. I appreciate that.
Well, despite what you may think, not all of the bums in Sacramento are on the Assembly Public Safety Committee. They have regular bums just like us. And Randy, there is drama with a capital D going on right now.
That's right. A group calling themselves the Homeless Union. Don't worry, there's not actually any unionized homelessness.
Wait. Union implies you have a job.
It's like the bus riders union. It's mostly made up. Anyway, a group calling themselves the Homeless Union of Sacramento is really pissed off that a judge in Sacramento sent a letter to the mayor of Sacramento, Darrell Steinberg, that he needs to increase the police presence because there are a lot of homeless people committing crimes right around the courthouse, and it's getting very unsafe. That pissed off the homeless advocate who runs the Sacramento Homeless Union. And that's where we are today.
For more on this, here's KCRA-TV.
Today, supporters of Sacramento's homeless population are pushing back against...
By the way, I love that. Supporters of the homeless population. They love that they're homeless.
It's part of their identity.
The homeless advocates might be the worst people in the state of California. And that's saying something.
Well, because they are issue advocates like other issue advocacy groups, which means if they solve their problem, they go away. You notice what happened when Roe versus Wade got overturned. The pro-life movement, which has been working very diligently to get Roe versus Wade overturned for decades, moved on, didn't skip a beat, and went to the 6-week abortion ban. Because you can't just declare victory and then close shop, because then what do you do for work? It's like the gay advocacy groups. For years and years and years, they were pushing for marriage. They were pushing for getting rid of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And they won all of their big battles that they were fundraising off of and working towards. So what happened? It became transgenders in athletics. They have to continue to find a way to keep the issue going. Otherwise, they have to go away. With the homeless advocacy groups, the minute they find housing for these people, the minute that people stop living on the streets, they actually have to buy an alarm clock, and none of them want to do that.
Today, supporters of Sacramento's homeless population are pushing back against a Superior Court judge's claims that crimes are being committed by people living in tents around the courthouse.
KCR3.
Well, either the crimes are being committed or they're not. Either a fire is started or it's not. It's not something that's in the gray area.
Yeah, this isn't a subject that would be on that show, Unsolved Mysteries.
KCR3's Leticia Ordaz has more on the growing source of contention and concern.
Well, we can tell you that Sacramento judge says he is fed up with the homeless community trashing the areas in and around the Sacramento courthouse here in the downtown area, and also making people feel unsafe, according to the judge. You can see the tents lining the sidewalk here, but the homeless union says the request to get police involved has gone too far.
Who is supposed to enforce the law if not for the police? Do they want safety ambassadors, social workers, Superman? What do they want?
And remember, the insanity of this story is that the homeless union is not a thing. Who gives a crap what these people have to say? How dare they have a voice?
But the homeless union says a request to get police involved is...
What do you think the dues are?
I think they get their payment in math.
I got a great joke, but I think it's too dirty for the air, so I'll tell you off the air.
Okay.
has gone too far. Late last month...
Oh, what the hell? It's not dues, it's doo-doos.
Oh, God.
Has gone too far. Late last month, Superior Court Judge Michael Bowman outlined his concerns in a letter to the mayor and the Sacramento City Council. He said the problem being seen around the courthouse are threatening access to justice. He says incidents being reported include assault, public sex acts, open fires, among other issues.
You know, just your day of the life in a bum.
Oh, yeah, just another day in paradise.
Fires and hooking.
The facilities team says it's busy removing feces and waste from the grounds on a daily basis.
Oh, boy.
The judge requested the Sacramento Police Department increase patrols and enforce code violations while urging the homeless community to get connected to services.
So what about what this judge said is controversial?
It seems pretty commonsensical to me.
Now the Sacramento Homeless Union says the letter paints a greatly exaggerated picture of rampant crime here.
Okay, either the crimes happened or they didn't. And if they didn't happen, then the judge is a liar. So why don't you just flat out call him a liar? They're not calling him a liar because what the judge described is entirely accurate. They just think it's bad form to acknowledge it.
They also allege the judge violated judicial ethics with the letter making a statement on an issue that is likely to come before the courts.
Wait, so a judge who does no longer feel safe in his workplace because of the conditions can't ask the mayor for police presence?
Part of what has to happen at a courthouse for our system to work is that judges and juries have to be safe. You are compelled to show up at jury duty by law. It is part of your civic duty. You don't have to vote, but you have to show up for jury duty service, or they can technically hold you in contempt. And judges are supposed to be able to show up and work without fear of physical violence. The minute that judges and juries are intimidated is the minute our system breaks down. So don't claim to be the individuals who are for democracy and for a free republic if we now have a situation where judges and juries can't show up to perform their services without being intimidated, whether it's by someone that wants a certain outcome in a trial or bums living in and around the airport courthouse, making it unsafe.
On an issue that is likely to come before the courts. And Mayor Darrell Steinberg did respond to the judge's letter, saying that it is his top priority to move these tents to Miller Park to keep everyone in the community safe. In downtown Sacramento, Leticia Ordaz, KCRA 3 News.
Although that's not too much. Darrell Steinberg was one of Gavin Newsom's homeless czars, along with Mark Ridley Thomas. And you know how much a great job they've been doing on that.
And why move them to the park? Just get rid of the encampment. Force them into a shelter. And if they don't want to go into a shelter, force them to move out of the city.
They can't do that. The homeless union won't stand for it.
Of course not.
Hey, how do you go on strike when you don't have a job?
Maybe you go to work.
So that's what the story is about. A press conference was held on the steps of that courthouse from the homeless union and their leader, Crystal Sanchez. If that name seems even remotely familiar, it's because she tried to run for lieutenant governor last year and failed miserably.
Wait, the last name is Sanchez?
Yes.
I thought Crystal's last name was Meth.
Well, it's very appropriate. It's like how the manager of the McDonald's that got ransacked in Leimert Park was named Lardass.
Tony Lardass.
If you're running a homelessness union, your name has to be Crystal. Anyway, here's this piece of work.
Presiding Judge Bowman's letter to Mayor Steinberg has manufactured a harmful narrative that we can separate, segment the populations, classify them all as menaces by the acts maybe of one, and then condemn enforcement.
So it's just one homeless person that was doing the sex ass and pooping everywhere and doing drugs and setting fires?
Wow. Was that guy eating Thanksgiving dinner every meal of the day?
And then condemn enforcement with no real violations of the laws that have been perpetuated by those without a roof.
I believe there were many violations of the law pointed out in the letter, including starting fires and public sex acts.
They may be living in a place where they have no roof, but crime is going through the roof.
This sets the tone for horrific times in history, such as segregation and the ugly laws, meaning that it's okay to sweep people others interpret as different, out of sight, out of mind. The status quo has become... We don't want to...
She had to flip her note cards.
We don't want to see you. We truly don't want to help you. Legally, you shouldn't have to move. So we will criminalize you for existing and ban you, and hopefully homelessness will disappear.
So, breaking down a violent homeless encampment with crimes, arresting people for setting fires in public sex acts, in the mind of the leader of the homeless union, Miss Crystal herself, says is the equivalent of segregation.
Well, go back to the conversation with Doug McIntyre from yesterday. It is now regarded as being pro-homeless, or I guess not pro-homeless, but you are someone who respects the homeless if you allow them to exist on the streets. And part of being homeless to them are crimes associated with homelessness. So if they use drugs in public, if they steal bicycles, if they steal mail, if they go to the bathroom in public, if they light fires, all of that they deserve a mulligan on because those are all crimes associated with the homelessness. And unless you are okay with homeless crime, you're a bigot against the homeless. That's the way they see it.
This is how George Gascon 100% operates. Well, on day one, when he said there's a whole bunch of crimes that I'm just not going to prosecute no matter what, he said it's because if you're poor and you're in poverty, then I can't criminalize what you're doing.
That's right.
Let's hear more from Miss Crystal of the Homelessness Union with more cliches.
Why am I talking about all this? Because it could be any of us. I can say
any of us could turn into a prostituting bum.
Oh, yes. I can't tell you the number of times I've looked in the mirror and said, you know, today really took a couple of left-handed turns, or left turns, but I could have just as easily ended up on the street smoking meth as sitting here in the bathroom brushing my teeth.
Why am I talking about all this? Because it could be any of us.
She talks about homelessness like it's the West Nile virus.
I can say with great confidence and likelihood, you know someone, you were someone, or you're one paycheck away from homelessness. If you don't, then that makes you a small percentage of people who don't fall within these truths.
Public speaking is not her strong suit.
Is she speaking through a bullhorn?
Yes.
If you don't, then that makes you a small percentage of people who don't fall within these truths.
So we shouldn't do anything about the homeless committing crimes outside the courthouse because all of us could become homelessness at some point.
That's quite a piece of logic.
Here's a little more from Crystal, the operator of the Homeless Union in Sacramento.
The narrative being perpetuated by Judge Bowman, intentional or unintentional, is based in fear-mongering tone. The letter states the concern that people can't go for walks or to farmers market, which is an important aspect of work life and self-care. But is it more important? What is more important is truly addressing the root causes as to why people are actually on our streets to begin with.
Root causes. When they don't want to do something about a major problem, they say, we have to take a step back and we have to deal with the root causes.
I love the way she thumbs her nose that people shouldn't be safely able to go around the courthouse or to and from the farmer's market in the courthouse parking lot.
The narrative being perpetuated by Judge Bowman, intentional or unintentional, is based in fear-mongering tone. The letter states the concern that people can't go for walks or to farmer's market, which is an important aspect of work life and self-care. But is it more important? What is more important is truly addressing the root causes as to why people are actually on our streets to begin with.
None of us should be able to enjoy our lives as long as there are bums doing meth on the streets, and Crystal knows a lot about meth.
No, she believes that public safety is something that's a luxury of the rich.
This is just some of the madness that's happening in Sacramento right now, where the judge is the villain and there is a union of homeless that is standing up against criminalizing crime.
If you want to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you are monitoring the mailbag.
That's right. Robert writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Hey, Randy, how does a homeless union go on strike? Buy houses?
In that case, strike all you want. Consider yourself Norma Ray. We still don't know whose cocaine was found at the White House. We were told early on that they likely would not find out who the cocaine belonged to. And then they've given us about 5 different stories as to where they found the cocaine, but no one's been fingered yet. Well, we have some breaking news, Randy, that apparently fingerprints have been found on the bag of cocaine at the White House. This, according to security sources, speaking on condition of anonymity. If there are fingerprints on the bag of cocaine, they should theoretically be able to figure out who it belongs to.
Well, and if it's on the baggie itself, you might not only find out who it belongs to, but who they were sharing it with. Because a lot of people who do cocaine don't do it by themselves.
Sharing is caring. Although my guess is Hunter's pretty stingy with his coke.
You think he wouldn't give a line to a staffer?
Or a prostitute?
How about just a tiny little bump off a key?
Maybe. All right. We've got one more hour coming up on the John Phillips Show. Ryan Gerdusky joins us next. Don't you go anywhere. This is Talk Radio 790 KABC.